All right, get ready, everyone, because we're diving into one of the wildest stories we've ever covered.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's the case of Gerald Cotten and QuadrigaCX. We're talking cryptocurrency missing millions.
And twists and turns.
Yeah, enough to make your head spin. Okay, so picture this. You're a customer of Canada's biggest cryptocurrency exchange, and all of a sudden the CEO dies and takes the passwords to like $215 million in customer funds. With him to the grave.
Gone, just like that.
So did he really die taking the money with him? Or is there something else going on? Well, that's what we're going to try to figure out today.
It's a story that grabbed everyone's attention, not just because of, well, all that money, but because it really shows the risks and the allure of the world of cryptocurrency, which is still largely unregulated. To understand how it all happened, we need to go back to the beginning.
Okay, back to the beginning.
The rise of QuadrigaCX.
So rewind back to like 2017. The crypto boom is in full swing. Bitcoin, the value's going through the roof. Everyone wants in. Right smack in the middle of all this is QuadrigaCX.
Headed up by this seemingly charismatic young CEO, Gerald Cotten.
They were processing billions of dollars in trades. And Cotten, he's projecting an image of a successful entrepreneur. Even had plans to open an orphanage. Doesn't really sound like the typical, crypto kingpin, does it?
It's an interesting detail. On the one hand, it seems like genuine altruism, but looking back, it could also be a calculated move to gain trust, especially in an industry that even then was facing a lot of scrutiny.
Right, so it's kind of a classic story of like appearances versus reality.
Yeah.
But this story, it takes a dark turn in December 2018. Gerald Cotten unexpectedly dies while on his honeymoon in India. The official cause of death? Complications from Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Cotten was only 30 years old, and the chances of dying from Crohn's at that age are incredibly low.
Less than 3%, statistically. Naturally, a lot of people thought that was pretty suspicious right away. And to make matters worse, it turned out Cotten was the only one with access to the cold wallets. Those are essentially offline storage where most of the customer funds were being kept.
So millions of dollars in cryptocurrency are just locked away, and the only person with the key is suddenly gone. That's like a total nightmare.
It is. It shows one of the biggest risks with cryptocurrency, that potential for a single point of failure. And the way Cotten's death was handled just added to the suspicions, really. There was a delay in announcing it, a closed casket funeral. And his wife, Jennifer Robertson, refused to have the body exhumed.
Hang on, it gets even weirder. Only 12 days before he died, Cotten updated his will, leaving everything to his wife. With all those weird things going on, the internet went crazy, right?
Oh yeah, totally exploded with speculation. Theories range from Cotten faking his own death and just chilling on a tropical island somewhere with all the money, to all sorts of crazy conspiracies about government cover-ups.
Like right out of a spy movie.
Yeah.
And to add to it all, Cotten's former business partner, Michael Patron, turns out he had a history of financial fraud and had even changed his name, like multiple times. It's almost too much to believe.
It definitely adds a whole other layer to the story. But aside from the conspiracy theories, there were some very real consequences for QuadrigaCX's customers. Lots of them had been saying it was really hard to withdraw their funds for months leading up to his death.
So even before he died, there were signs that something was wrong. Did the authorities find anything?
Well, the Ontario Securities Commission launched an investigation, and their findings were, well, pretty bad. They concluded that QuadrigaCX wasn't just badly managed, it was basically a Ponzi scheme.
Wait, hold on. Ponzi scheme. Can you explain what that means?
Sure. It's a type of investment fraud. Returns for early investors are paid out from the investments of later investors, not from any actual profits, basically robbing Peter to pay Paul. It always collapses in the end.
So they're saying Cotten was using new customer money to pay off old investors, all the while making it look like a legitimate exchange.
Exactly. And their investigation showed that Cotten had been misusing funds on a massive scale, trading with personal accounts, losing millions in the process.
This just keeps getting worse. So we've got a maybe fake death, a CEO running a Ponzi scheme, and $215 million in cryptocurrency gone. What happened next?
Well, that's where things get even trickier. There is some evidence that supports Cotten's death, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions. Investigators, including one journalist who went all the way to India to try and retrace his final days, they couldn't definitely confirm or deny what happened.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Right.
But we can't forget about the human cost of all this.
Thousands of QuadrigaCX customers lost everything, their savings, their dreams.
It reminds us that even in the world of cryptocurrency, real people's lives are affected. And Cotton's wife, Jennifer Robertson, she ended up right at the center of it all.
She said she had no idea about her husband's activities, but her involvement in QuadrigaCX's finances and her inheritance raised some eyebrows.
Yeah, I bet.
She admitted that there were, and I quote, stacks of cash everywhere in their home, but she never asked where it came from, and she was actually processing funds for QuadrigaCX.
It's hard to believe that she didn't know anything.
It's definitely one of the most debated parts of the story, and investigations have found some evidence that supports Cotton's death. For example, blockchain analysis shows some suspicious fund movements before he died. But we still don't know what happened to the $215 million, and how much Jennifer Robertson knew remains a mystery.
So where do we go from here? We've got missing millions, a ton of deception, and so many unanswered questions.
Well, next we'll dive deeper into the investigations, the conspiracy theories, and the lasting impact that QuadrigaCX has had on the world of cryptocurrency.
Stay with us. This deep dive is far from over. Okay, so we left off with a whole bunch of unanswered questions. Missing money, a maybe fake death, and a wife who might be involved. It's a lot to take in.
What's really interesting is how much speculation this case caused. It happened when cryptocurrency was already, seen as both fascinating and kind of sketchy, and then Cotton's death just threw fuel on the fire.
Yeah, it's like the perfect recipe for conspiracy theories. What were some of the craziest ones out there?
Oh man, you name it, someone probably thought of it. Some people thought Cotton faked his death, used a body double, and was living it up on some island with all the Bitcoin. Others thought it was something darker, like the mafia or even government agencies were involved.
Sounds like the internet was having a field day. Did any of those, amateur detectives find anything real?
You'd be surprised what people online can dig up. They went through financial records, analyzed blockchain transactions, even put together timelines of what Cotton was doing. They didn't solve the whole thing, but they did find some details that backed up the official investigations.
Like what? Give us the good stuff.
Well, for example, they looked into Cotton's former business partner, Michael Patron, the one with the fraud history, remember? He changed his name a bunch of times, which made him hard to track, but these online sleuths managed to connect him to even more scams. It really made it seem like Cotton wasn't working alone.
So maybe a whole group of people were involved.
It's a real possibility. The more you learn about this case, the more it feels like a puzzle with pieces all over the place.
Yeah. Okay, but let's step back from the conspiracies for a sec. What did the actual investigations find out about Cotton's death and the money?
Well, the official investigations, like the one by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, they focused on figuring out if Cotton really died and trying to track the missing funds. They talked to Jennifer Robertson, looked at QuadrigaCX's finances, even got help from international authorities. But even after all that, the case is still unsolved.
And what about Jennifer Robertson? Did they find anything that showed she was part of the fraud?
She always said she didn't know anything about her husband's activities, that she was just following his instructions. She cooperated with them, gave them documents, answered questions. But in the end, she was never charged with anything.
So she just walked away with millions. Feels like something's missing here.
Well, one problem the investigators had was that cryptocurrency transactions are hard to track. It's not like regular banks, Cryptocurrencies use this thing called the blockchain, which is like a decentralized ledger. It's way harder to follow the money, especially if someone's trying to hide it.
So even with all that fancy tech, blockchain analysis and stuff, you're saying someone could make millions disappear?
It's not easy, but it's not impossible. They brought in these blockchain analysis companies to track the QuadrigaCX funds. And they did find some fishy stuff, like Cotton moving money between different exchanges, probably to make it hard to see where it came from.
So even if we don't know for sure what happened to Cotton, we know he was moving money around in a shady way.
Exactly. Most of the $215 million is still missing. But they did manage to recover a little bit through things like settlements with his estate and seizing some assets.
I guess that's something. But it's not much comfort to the people who lost everything.
Definitely not. And it shows why we need better rules and security in the cryptocurrency world.
Speaking of rules, how did this case change how crypto is regulated? Did it lead to any big changes?
QuadrigaCX was a real wake-up call for regulators everywhere. It showed just how vulnerable this fast-growing industry was, because there were barely any rules. After it all collapsed, lots of countries made stricter rules for cryptocurrency exchanges. Things like know your customer and anti-money laundering regulations.
So the people who lost money, they actually pushed the industry to be more transparent.
You could see it that way. What happened to them was awful, but it might have helped create a safer environment for crypto investors in the future.
It's crazy to think, we've gone this deep into the QuadrigaCX case, and it really goes way beyond just missing money. It's about how this affected real people, how trust was broken, and all these unanswered questions that still hang over the crypto world.
You know, it makes you think about the downsides of all this innovation. Sometimes the excitement around new tech can overshadow, basic things like honesty.
And after all the investigations, we still don't know for sure what happened to Cotton or that missing fortune. It's a real modern-day mystery.
Yeah, and how this case changed the whole cryptocurrency landscape. It showed how weak the system was, especially back then when there weren't many rules.
So it's a wake-up call, not just for people who invest, but for the whole crypto industry.
Absolutely. Regulators and governments around the world started paying attention, and we've seen a big push for transparency and protecting consumers ever since.
It's kind of ironic, but the people who lost money might have actually made things safer.
Right, what happened to them was terrible, but it might have helped create a better, more accountable crypto system.
It shows that progress can come at a cost. And even with setbacks, we can learn and make things better.
It's amazing how this case still gets people talking. It shows how relevant it is, and all the big questions it raises about trust, technology, human nature.
This story really does have it all. Mystery, intrigue, financial chaos.
And even though we may never know exactly what happened to Gerald Cotten or the missing millions, QuadrigaCX is a warning. It reminds us to be careful, do our research, and think critically, especially when it comes to money and tech.
It's a story with lessons for everyone.
Exactly.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one last thought.
Yeah.
How do we balance the amazing possibilities of new technology with the need for responsibility and protection?
It's a question that becomes even more important as technology keeps changing and we enter new territory.
This conversation isn't over. Keep asking questions. Stay informed. That's what the deep dive is all about.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll finally know the whole truth about QuadrigaCX. Until then, we can learn from what happened, stay alert, and approach the future with, open eyes and a critical mind.
Thanks for joining us on this crazy journey through cryptocurrency, mystery, and all that. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into a topic that'll make you think, question, and see the world in a new way.